Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Andrew Yang, who ran in 2020 for president and didn't fare so well, although successfully introducing universal basic income into the ether. He had some comments the other day about Bernie Sanders, not actually aggressively calling out Bernie or anything, but saying he personally feels Bernie should have started a third party. Let's take a look. Andrew Yang tweeting out, I personally think Bernie should have started a third party years ago. He then references some data. Let's read his data. There are people on the left who want to take over the Democratic Party for big goals. There are a few big obstacles. One is that half of Dems don't consider themselves liberal. 54% want to make the party more conservative, not less. The makeup of the party is fairly moderate. I don't know where he's getting his statistics from, but okay. The second is money in politics. The DNC raised 493 million in 2020. The DCCC raised 346 million, and the DSC 303 million. Billions more come in from corporations and PACs. Most of that money is not geared towards backing candidates who are looking to rock the boat. The third is the Dems' relationship with the media. The mainstream media will generally marginalize or ignore certain candidates. Meanwhile, 69% of Democrats have high trust in media. The Dems will tend to be more institutional than, say, Republicans, 85%, who mistrust the media. He didn't seem to mind the media being in the tank for the Democratic Party when he became a CNN contributor in 2020 and then endorsed Biden over Bernie. But I digress. Let's continue. So the fourth is that Republican voters are overweighted because they live in more low population states where their votes count more heavily. This has the effect of making the average state 6 points more Republican than the average voter. Dems would need to win 54% in multiple cycles. The fifth is that in a system where 90% of seats are uncompetitive in the general and incumbents have a 94% reelection rate despite 80% of Americans disapproving of congressional performance, there is no real set of incentives or accountability for representatives. So I want to address a couple things because I thought Andrew Yang saying this was noteworthy. And obviously, he's pushing his own third party, the Forward Party. First of all, I actually agree that Bernie should have created a third party years ago, but that Bernie should have ran in 2016 once he dropped out of the Democratic primary as a Green candidate. Jill Stein was offering essentially to give over the Green Party ticket to Bernie Sanders. He could have ran as an independent. You had two of the most unpopular, actually historically unpopular candidates in Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. And there was a real fever for an alternative to both of them. And I also think that Bernie, even losing the primary to Hillary Clinton, still was the most popular politician in the country, even though he lost what we all know was a rigged primary. Addressing him creating a third party years ago, presumably Yang means after 2016, I completely agree. But we all know Bernie's, DNA, and essentially for his character, which I think is a weakness, is being anti-establishment and going up to a line to a certain point, but never crossing that line. Bernie was deathly afraid of being Ralph Nadered in 2016, meaning if he ran as a Green Party or independent, he was afraid of going down in infamy like Ralph Nader has, unfairly, by the way, as giving us Trump by splitting the vote and taking away votes from Hillary Clinton, even though, frankly, Bernie running as an independent might have just as equally taken away votes from Trump. I can't tell you how many times I went out on the road covering Trump rallies in 2016 and asked Trump voters, who's your number two? Who would you consider other than Trump? They said Bernie Sanders. Many saying, I don't agree with every single thing he says, but he is authentic. He is real. We could tell he actually cares as opposed to these other bullshit artists. There was a lot of crossover appeal with Trump supporters and Bernie supporters, particularly in the Midwest. There still is that crossover appeal. So I agree with Yang that Bernie should have created a third party years ago. He didn't because he took the strategy of playing inside baseball in the Democratic Party, of being diplomatic with his friend Joe, of essentially thinking I could actually move Biden left, which was beyond politically naive and clearly hasn't worked. And Bernie, frankly, I respect everything he's done for the progressive movement, but he's been mostly neutered as the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, holding hearings, doing his usual calling out corporate greed, but not actually forcing anything to get done or forcing Biden the same way he forced Amazon years ago to raise its minimum wage to $15 an hour. Remember, when Bernie goes, aggressively, when Bernie galvanizes the troops, in-person protests, digital organizing, he could put a lot of pressure on corporations. The second wealthiest person in America, Jeff Bezos, he has chosen not to do that towards Biden or the Democratic Party. And according to most of his closest advisors, that's just not who Bernie is, which is frustrating because for a man that galvanized the troops and brought millions of people into the political process, he talks of political revolution, but it kind of dies on the doorstep when actually galvanizing the troops to go against Biden, against McConnell. So I actually agree with Yang on this, that Bernie should have created a third party years ago. But now let's move forward to 2024. Granted, we don't know if Biden's definitely going to run. If he doesn't run, we don't know if the Democratic Party will, stab Kamala Harris in the back or the front and, push somebody else to run over Kamala Harris because she would clearly be a disaster. Granted, Bernie's turning 81 years old later this year. In 2024, he would be 83. So there's a lot of, disclaimers and caveats. But could Bernie skip the Democratic primary if he wanted to run again and run as an independent and compete? Abso-fucking-lutely. And I'm not trying to give you false hope. This is not me being a Bernie bro or anything like that. This is just looking at numbers. I mean, this is a recent poll. 58% of voters open to backing independent candidate if faced with Biden and Trump. 58% of voters said they were open to supporting a moderate independent presidential candidate in a contest between President Biden and former President Trump, according to a new Harvard Caps Harris poll released exclusively to The Hill. Additionally, the survey found that the majorities of voters said they do not want Biden or Trump in 2024. 63% of respondents said they did not want Biden to run for a second term, while only 37% said they did want him to run again. Meanwhile, 55% said they did not want Trump to run again in 2024. 45% they said the former president should run again. Now, what's interesting about this, you got to read polls and read certain words and language. Keyword that they would want a moderate independent they'd consider. Well, it depends how you phrase the question in a poll. It depends on a lot of things because at the end of the day, compared to like Europe, Bernie is more moderate on the left. He has not gone as far as some European parties in terms of leftist policy. But to me, the key is Biden and Trump. Unless many things change right now, it definitely to me looks like it's going to be Trump on the Republican side if he's not in jail or he's alive and kicking. Right now, to me, I would put it at a 40-60 that Biden's going to run again, 40 that he won't, 40 that he will, 60 that he won't. But he might if there's a threat of Bernie Sanders running again, because the Democratic Party, if there's one thing they desperately are scared of more than another Trump term, it's Bernie Sanders or an actual progressive in the White House. We saw that in 2016 and 2020. And frankly, do we really, is the Democratic Party kind of low key begging for Trump again? That's how they took back the House in 2018. That's how they raised boatloads of cash when they were in the minority and Trump was in office. That's how they created the resistance. That's how the media, their allies and sycophants, had their ratings soar to record highs under Trump. So low key, do they really care that much about winning? If they really cared about winning, obviously Biden would be passing student loan cancellation and a whole host of other things he could do through executive action. But to me, if it's Biden, Trump, you better believe there is going to be a huge, huge lane for an independent like Bernie Sanders. Obviously, Nina Turner has spoken. She would consider an independent run. Bernie could basically bypass the Democratic primary, push himself into debates. He would galvanize the troops, a lot of deflated members of those troops right now who still like Bernie, but just can't bring themselves to do this dance again in the Democratic Party, but might kind of be activated and be galvanized to support Bernie as an independent, not just supporting him, but knocking on doors, donating, all those things. So I think it's really possible that, let me rephrase, I don't think it's definite that Bernie would consider that. But I think it's very, very possible that he could win as an independent and make history. I think it's possible that other candidates could run as an independent and be at least competitive, because if Trump and Hillary were the most unpopular in 2016, what do you think it would be with Trump, who still would be very unpopular, and Biden, who by 2024 might be lower than the Titanic in terms of approval? So it's very, very interesting. And the additional element here today, Bernie is introducing Medicare for All formally in a Senate hearing on Medicare for All.
Let me thank all of you for attending the very first U.S. Senate committee hearing on Medicare for All. Let me also thank the many dozens of organizations throughout our country who support Medicare for All, and the tens of thousands of doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals who support this legislation. Let me thank the 15 Senate co-sponsors that we have on this bill, and the 122 members of the House who support very similar legislation.
By 2024, we already have majority approval for Medicare for All. By 2024, it might even get stronger because COVID's not going anywhere. Now they've stripped government funding for COVID testing, vaccines. So if you're uninsured, you're shit out of luck. If you are insured, you have to go through the rigmarole of reimbursements. And as I just had to do, they will not cover both a rapid same-day test and a PCR test. You have to pay for one of those out of pocket. So there's going to be even more of a fever pitch for Medicare for All. Then you look at the climate. It's going to be even worse in 2024. You look at all of the additional things. Inflation is not necessarily going to be completely under control by 2024. There is a massive lane for an independent. I'm not going to throw out predictions I don't believe. I doubt Bernie would do it based on knowing who he is, speaking with people in his campaigns over the last few years. For whatever reason, he seems to be deathly afraid of being nadered. But on the other side, hey, Bernie, you'd be 83. This is your last hurrah. Go out really, really fighting for a revolution. We'll see what happens. But on this, got to say, I'm with you, Andrew Yang. I think you're completely right. Thanks for watching, and make sure to tune in to Status Coup's daily live stream Monday through Thursday at 5 o'clock Eastern Time and Fridays at 4 o'clock Eastern Time.